The first thing I noticed was the weight. It wasn't oppressive, but it was there, a gentle pressure on my chest, warm and alive. My eyes fluttered open, and the dim glow of the ship's emergency lighting greeted me. The air smelled faintly of ozone and recycled oxygen, a reminder that we were light years away from anything resembling Earth. And then I saw her, Kaela. Her silver hair cascaded over her shoulders, catching the faint light like strands of starlight. Her luminescent blue eyes, those damn eyes that always seemed to pierce straight through me, were locked onto mine. She was kneeling over me, her hands resting on my chest, her expression unreadable. "Kaela," I croaked, my voice dry and raspy. My head throbbed, and my body felt like it had been put through a blender. What happened? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she tilted her head, studying me with that unnerving intensity of hers. Kaela wasn't human. She was a Xalith, a species known for their advanced technology and, well, their complete lack of emotional transparency. They were logical to a fault, cold and calculating. But Kaela, she was different. Least I like to think she was. "You were injured," she said finally, her voice smooth and melodic, yet devoid of any discernible emotion. "The ship's AI detected a hull breach in Section 7. You attempted to repair it manually. A miscalculation caused an explosion. You were thrown into the bulkhead." I groaned, trying to sit up, but her hands pressed down firmly, keeping me in place. "Do not move," she said. "Your injuries are significant. The nanobots are still repairing your tissue." "Great," I muttered, letting my head fall back against the floor. "So what, you're my nurse now?" Her brow furrowed slightly, a rare display of emotion that caught me off guard. "I am ensuring your survival. Your recklessness jeopardizes the mission." "Yeah, well, someone had to fix the damn hull," I shot back, wincing as a sharp pain shot through my side. "Unless you were planning to do it." She didn't respond. Instead, she leaned closer, her face inches from mine. I could feel her breath on my skin, warm and oddly comforting. For a moment I forgot about the pain, the mission, everything. All I could focus on was her. And then she spoke. "You are important to me." I blinked, sure I'd misheard her. "What?" Her eyes never wavered. "You are important to me," she repeated, her voice softer now, almost hesitant. "I do not understand why, but the thought of your death, it is unsettling." I stared at her, my mind racing. Kaela, the emotionless Xalith, was telling me I mattered to her? This had to be some kind of hallucination, a side effect of the painkillers the nanobots were pumping into my system. "Kaela," I said slowly, "are you saying you care about me?" She hesitated, her gaze flickering away for the briefest of moments. "I do not have the capacity for emotions as you do," she said. "But my neural algorithms have identified you as a priority. Your survival is essential to my functioning." I couldn't help it, I laughed. It was a weak, pained laugh, but it was genuine. "So what, I'm like a mission objective to you?" Her brow furrowed again, and this time, there was a hint of frustration in her voice. "No. You are more than that. Cannot explain it, but you are different. Unique." I fell silent, my laughter fading. There was something in her voice, something raw and vulnerable, that I'd never heard before. It was as if she was struggling to articulate something she didn't fully understand. "Kaela," I said softly, I think you might actually have feelings. Real feelings." She shook her head, her silver hair shimmering in the dim light. "That is impossible. Xalith do not experience emotions. We are logical beings." "And yet," I said, reaching up to brush a strand of hair from her face, "here you are, telling me I'm important to you." She froze, her eyes widening slightly. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then slowly she leaned into my touch, her cheek pressing against my hand. "This is unfamiliar," she whispered. "I do not know how to process it." "That's okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You don't have to figure it all out right now. Just stay with me, okay?" She nodded, her eyes closing as she rested her head against my chest. I could feel the steady rhythm of her breathing, the warmth of her body against mine. For the first time since we'd set out on this mission, I felt at peace. The next few hours passed in a blur. Kaela stayed by my side, monitoring my vitals and ensuring the nanobots did their job. By the time I was able to sit up without feeling like my ribs were going to collapse, the ship's AI had repaired the hull breach, and we were back on course. But something had changed between us. Kaela was quieter than usual, her usual stoic demeanor replaced by a pensiveness that I couldn't quite decipher. She avoided my gaze, her movements stiff and deliberate, as if she was trying to distance herself from whatever had happened between us. "Kaela," I said finally, breaking the silence that had settled over the cockpit. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stared out at the stars, her expression unreadable. "I do not know," she said at last. "What happened between us? It was illogical. It should not have happened." "Why not?" asked my voice gentle. "Because it complicates things," she said, turning to face me. Her eyes were filled with a turmoil I'd never seen before. "I am a Xalith. My purpose is to serve the mission, not to feel." "But you do feel," I said, reaching out to take her hand. "And that's okay. It doesn't make you any less of who you are." She looked down at our intertwined hands, her brow furrowed. "I do not know how to reconcile this," she admitted. "It is overwhelming." "Then let me help you," I said, squeezing her hand. "You don't have to figure it all out on your own." For a long moment she was silent. Then slowly she nodded. "Perhaps that would be acceptable," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I smiled, pulling her closer. "Good. Because I'm not going anywhere." As the ship hurtled through the void, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. Kaela and I were from different worlds, different species, but in that moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was the connection we'd forged, the bond that defied logic and reason. And as I looked into her eyes, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them together. Because sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't logic or reason. It's love.